Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I am your host, Jay Cluett, and on this show, normally myself and my co-host, Mark Hoffmeyer, have discussed the Deep Blue Sea franchise, one DVD chapter at a time. We've done all three of those films. We're now looking at Deep Blue Sea adjacent films. That's films directed by Rennie Harlin, featuring sharks, or take place in and around a lot of water. And Mark and I are both having quite busy times at the moment, so we're re-releasing previous episodes that we have recorded for his separate podcast, Movies, Films and Flicks. I've been a guest on several times, covering, coincidentally, Deep Blue Sea adjacent films in the past. So this is one of those episodes. This is an episode on Swimfan. You may have been expecting an episode on Piranha 3D, because that's last week what I said would be this week. Due to technical issues, that will be a later date. So that should be the episode in a couple of weeks' time. So Piranha 3D is coming. Don't you worry. We have Swimfan for you this week instead. What is Swimfan? Well, Swimfan was released in 2002, directed by John Polson and starring Jesse Bradford, Erika Christensen, Sherry Appleby, Kate Burton, Dan Hedaya, Jason Ritter, Clayne Crawford, James DeBello, a bunch of people. It mainly tells the story of Jesse Bradford plays a high school star swimmer whose life seems to be perfect. Girlfriend, doing well at school, great at swimming, etc. But this all gets turned upside down with the arrival of Madison Bell, played by Erika Christensen, who seems to have him in her sights for some reason or other. It's a 2000s thriller. Not a very long film, currently on Amazon Prime in the UK. Check it out if you want. And this episode was initially released February 24th, 2020. So that's what this episode is. This episode is me and Mark talking about Swimfan. So, enjoy.
Welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man who is currently recording this while riding a moped. It's Jay Cluett.
Hey, Mark. Good to talk to you again.
I mean, you're impressive, man. You recorded the Piranha 3D one on a jet ski. You recorded a jet ski podcast on a jet ski, and now you're mopeding and recording.
I mean, it's gotten to the point where I'm no longer impressed by my actions. This is just day to day for me. So you can make a big deal of it if you will, but this is just my life, you know?
I don't hear traffic.
It's pretty quiet around here. I mean, it's pretty late at night. But we've had some bad weather recently, so the road's been pretty clear.
I figured I could hear a whir from the moped. This is no bumps, man. You're looking at
so.
You have your notes with you in one hand. So you're driving with one hand and you have notes with the other hand.
I mean, you think I'm driving with one hand. I have a bottle of water in the other hand. So this is all my thighs. Just I've been working out with my thighs. It's all controlling the moped. I'm a no hands.
Wow.
I'm a no hands guy. The Movies, Films and Flicks podcast does not endorse driving a moped with no hands. But that's what I'm doing. I'm taking my life into my thighs.
And well, that's you know what? I've been on this earth for 37 years, and I never thought I'd hear that line. So after 250 some episodes of the Movies, Films and Flicks podcast. That's the first time we've ever heard that line. Wow.
No, you should sell T-shirts. Taking my life into my thighs.
And it's you holding a Swimfan DVD with a bottle of water in your other.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you have? When back in the day, when you go through a drive-through. And, like a Burger King or McDonald's, whatever restaurant, and they have those BK headsets on, Burger King headsets. Is that what you're talking into?
Yeah, their reception's pretty good. Battery life's decent. So, I mean, it seems to be working so far. It works on a jet ski, so I figure it can work on a moped.
Wow. And you managed to rip yourself off of that jet ski, too.
It was tough. I had to give up that jet ski lifestyle. It wasn't practical to, get to my job, which is landlocked. So I just had to, I picked the next best thing. Like, what's a jet ski for the land? What's an impractical, relatively slow mode of transport that can still weave its way through bigger things? And it's a moped. It's got to be a moped. It has to be. So,
Dude, this is great. I love it. And, I'll have a little bit of post-production work, but I think it'll be great. Now, I'm really surprised that we finally got
this is where it all began.
So, all right, let me give you a little history. I don't think I've ever told you this. So, John Lazovath, one of the original co-hosts of this, I think he did probably the first 100 episodes. And I used to joke around about Swimfan ever since it came out, right? Since, 2002. He and I have just been joking around about how we're never going to watch Swimfan, but we've always owned copies of it. So he would just send me a copy of Swimfan, and it's like, Mark, I now own Swimfan Hoffmeyer as the delivery address. So we had this bit about Swimfan. It was kind of like my old Kramer versus Kramer that I always use now. I'm probably running that into the ground. And
have you never seen Kramer versus Kramer?
Oh, no, I have. But whenever people are like, yeah, it's a great comedy up there with Ace Ventura, then I'm like, yeah, Kramer versus Kramer.
Yeah.
It's like, so we'd always do Swimfan. And one time he sent it to me, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch it. So I sat down with my wife, Megan, and we watched it. And then I made a joke about it. I was like, I feel like I built it up too much in my head after watching it. And then I pitched it to you about Swimfan because I have a weird curiosity with this movie. And
well, you pitched it to me back on the sports movie draft Lambcast where you picked it.
Oh, yeah.
I think this was your first round pick was Swimfan.
I did pick Swimfan.
And you had an early pick. It was like one of the first picks in the entire draft was Swimfan, and it left myself and the other guests a little dumbfounded, mainly because I was unfamiliar with Swimfan. It was not something that I'd come across my way before.
Oh wait, I picked Goon first, right? And then Swimfan.
Yes, yeah, something like that. But it was still far earlier in the draft than Swimfan should have been picked, and that was the what caused the whole soggy saga to occur. Because you basically said, "Oh, you have to come on my show and talk about Swimfan." I was like, "Okay," and then from that we spawned Lake Placid, Anaconda, Deep Blue Sea, everything else.
And we kept pushing this one back.
You kept pushing this one back.
Yeah, you're right. Well, all right, here's the deal.
I kept my eye on, is it still streaming on Amazon Prime? Is it still streaming? And fortunately it was. So I didn't have to pay any money.
Oh, that makes me so happy. You didn't have to run 6 miles for it.
Not this time.
There is a commentary on it with the director, John Polson, and actors Jesse Bradford and Erika Christensen. And I really didn't want to listen to it because I'm like, what are they going to talk about? But they were professional. It was a fun commentary. I actually learned a decent amount from it. And I was pretty impressed with a lot of commentaries. It's really bad. Like no one wants to talk. There was a conversation through the whole 84 minutes, which I appreciated. But I just was that like, so, you know me, I can't go into a podcast without knowing everything I can possibly know.
Yes, you and I are very different in that way.
And
I have just watched the film.
I'm so thankful that you did. You're the only person I've been able to get to do this. But now I feel like I'm the scholar on Swimfan in the United States, which is weird. A very weird thing.
Are there other people clamoring for this title, do you know?
Well, no. And so that's why
it's yours for the taking.
Exactly. But I think there's going to be some Swimfan fans out there who are very excited. And next time when I choose this way too high in a draft, people are going to be like, oh yeah, Swimfan.
What other draft are you going to pick Swimfan?
Best PG-13 thriller.
So we're probably not going to do a Dan Hedaya draft, as much as I might like to.
Well, we're doing that in this episode.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, no, we're doing it. Yeah, no, that's our draft for this round.
Okay.
But,
oh dear. Why didn't I see that coming?
If we did this thriller or drama, Swimfan number 1. And I'll just make everyone lose, like, just want to quit.
Yeah.
Make the podcast go into chaos.
I mean, I can think of very, very few categories where this would be the best film.
I have some questions for you.
Fire away.
Okay, so I have a bunch of questions for you. So our hero in this story, right?
I'm unsure who you're talking about.
Ben Cronin.
Okay, loose definition of hero.
When did he get into drugs? So he's 17, would you say, right?
Yeah, 17. So he spent 6 months in juvie. Which is when he started swimming, or at least started getting into swimming, like, as well as he did.
Yeah.
So he can't have gotten to a Stanford Scout level of swimming in 6 months. There must have been, and it's just the cops still remember his history, so he must have been out of juvie for, let's say, at least a year. So he must have been locked up at least 18 months ago. So if he's 17 now, then we're looking at 15 and a half, like 15-ish.
When did it start?
But when, this is the thing, when he gets busted for taking the steroids later on, his mum says, like, this is how it started last time. So he must have been doing some kind of a sport beforehand where he was doing performance enhancing drugs. So for it to have been caught for that one. So was that swimming or was that something else?
Was he doing performance enhancing drugs or was he doing drugs?
They just said drugs, but she said this is how it started last time. Oh no, but she was being more generic in terms of like failing at school and things. So
his mom is a doctor. His mom's a doctor, right?
Yes, and he's a volunteer nurse assistant at the hospital. Yeah,
and they live in an affluent neighborhood.
Okay.
Right. So his dad must have done a number on him when he was 12, 13. Remember he said his dad used to cheat on his mom?
Yeah.
So when his dad left, do you think he went through a rebellious phase and started low on drugs and then he started stealing?
I think that makes sense, yeah. And he has a very, very big car as well, which can't be cheap.
No.
So I'm guessing either his mum earns a great deal as a doctor, which is great for her, or his dad's paying some kind of alimony, or like child support. So yeah, maybe his dad bought it to kind of curry favor, to apologize for the psychological trauma he put his son through that ended up with him having a criminal record.
Did he do drugs with Josh, the guy who's always doing the fingers, like you know the guy his buddy swimmer,
the utter asshole,
the guy who's always doing the hand stuff. So right now I have my hands up in the air and I kind of have them on gun symbols and I'm kind of doing a Yosemite Sam, or like I'm kind of like yo, but I have very aggressive hand motions, and that's what this guy did. Were they like, did they run together when they were kids?
I can see that. I mean, Josh is a horrible person. He's when he's walking backwards down the hallway and someone else walks into him who is walking backwards and he has a massive go at the guy.
And he goes, hey! He screams hey at him twice.
He does. And the guy just tries to walk away. It's like Christopher, it's Madison's cousin. And he's trying to walk away because, you know, he's doing his own thing. He wasn't walking backwards. But Josh just wants to have a fight.
Is Josh on performance-enhancing drugs, and that's how Madison is able to get Ben?
I don't think he can be, because they have the urine test, and he doesn't fail it.
At what point does she sneak in performance-enhancing drugs into his urine sample?
It's a good question.
So he's a state swimmer, by the way, if you're listening. So this movie, Swimfan, it's about an obsessive woman who falls for a very willing senior swimmer.
It's teen Fatal Attraction.
There it is. So, hey, also I looked up Stanford Swimming, and they're number 2 in the nation right now.
Who's number 1?
I don't know. I just looked for Stanford.
Okay.
Hank University. Rhode Island University is number 1.
That's where Amy was going to go, Rhode Island. So maybe she's a secret swimmer. She's on the women's team.
I feel so bad for Amy in this movie, man.
God. Yeah.
Like, all right, so this movie, all right, it made good money. It made what, $13 million its opening weekend. It beat My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which everyone was shocked.
Jesus.
Yeah, it made money. And if you add in inflation, you know, it was over a $20 million opening, which is pretty big for a Swimfan. Cost $10 million. They made this as an indie, and then Fox bought it. So this movie was made for $10 million in New York. And then I listened to the commentary. I know all this stuff. But all right, so the biggest problem with this movie is that Ben Cronin, his girlfriend seems really cool.
Yeah.
Like, all right, so in the beginning scene, it's really creepy. It's just the two of them in their car, like, hooking up, right?
Yep.
All right. And then, yeah, very, like, in front of cars. Cars are just driving by. So, and then she's really cool to him. She's like, hey, you know, we're going to you're actually leaving me, because you know I'm going to Rhode Island. You're leaving across the country. I'll go to Berkeley. It's that easy for me, and I'll be there for you. We can get an apartment. And she works, like, a late job, and she's in high school. So she knows, like, responsibility, right? She's always closing the place at 2 a.m.
Yeah, she's a good kid. She knows she must be good to get into Berkeley. And, you know, she's dating one of the hottest sports guys in the school. So she's just got kind of a good reputation at the school. She's kind of the all-round pack.
And, like, no, I think everyone in the school likes her because she's not rude to anybody. And then she's also has a job, so she's not like a real, you know, uppity, you know what I mean? Like, this seems pretty cool. But
there's no flaws to her or her personality at all.